Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar-Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Hi, friends. Welcome back. Today we have Amy Shippy with us, the Lady BizWiz, as she is also known. And I'm going to let Amy introduce herself in a moment. But Amy, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to spend some time with you as well.
Likewise. I love this show for a few reasons. I love getting to meet with fellow entrepreneurs, but it is special when I get to speak with another woman founder. And I know you have a passion for this as well. So tell us a little bit about you and your business and how you serve others.
Yeah, so I have been an entrepreneur for the past 30 plus years. I started my first business when I was in my early 20s. And I basically have gone from startup to launch to success. And, I have been very fortunate to kind of figure out a process that applies to really every aspect of business or every type of business. And the process, it can be used over and over again. But I'm super passionate about the whole idea of having an idea, having a dream, and then making that dream come true. And then working with people that find themselves hung up in the obstacles of what that path looks like, and helping people figure out a way through those obstacles.
Very cool. And so that's part of what you do. You also own a business that doesn't.
I actively, so I don't just talk about business with people. I actually own and operate 3 businesses that I all started from scratch. Really with rather minimal funding. So my bakery, I started about 13 years ago with about $800. Grew that rather quickly. I have a design company that I've had for the past 5 years. I have a candy pecan company I've had for the past 3 years. And then I've been doing mentoring with women in business for a number of years. But it was not until the last 3 or so years that I launched Lady BizWiz and kind of formalized what that looked like, published a book, and getting ready to launch my business plan Masterclass here in December. So, like I said, I don't just talk about women entrepreneurship. It's the life that I lead and have lived really for the past 30 years. So what I bring to the table as an entrepreneur are my own struggles, my own obstacles, my own successes, and my own failures that have defined me as an entrepreneur, a mother, a wife. I mean, just the different roles that I play and how all of that fits together to make me, I think, the best version of me. And it doesn't all come with everything I do is great or everything I do is a slam dunk success. They all come with challenges. But what I have found in my journey is it's really not the challenges or really the successes that define who I am as an entrepreneur. It's how I navigate the obstacles that want to step in the way of my success that I learn really the most about myself and about this journey of entrepreneurship.
Beautiful. You are very busy. And yes. Holidays are potentially a little busy time for you with a bakery and a candy pecan company.
So I am busy. I mean, I will tell you, I am very busy. One thing I have learned in my entrepreneurial journey, and this has taken me a number of years, is I am very good at managing my time. So I really only work 8 hours every day. Okay. I sleep 8 hours every night. I'm a voracious reader, so I usually read between 2 and 3 books a week. I cook my family a meal pretty much every night. So yes, I am busy. However, what I have found in my journey as an entrepreneur, and as my businesses became a little bit more mature, is not really the same story when they're first starting. Yeah. Is that I become really kind of obsessive about how I organize my time, because at the end of the day, I only have 24 hours like you. Everybody only gets 24 hours in every day. I wish I could figure out more. I could be a millionaire if I could put 36 hours in a day. But I am busy. However, with the different practices I put into place as an entrepreneur, I get to basically control the majority of my time, the majority of my days. Now, there are probably 30 days in a year that I think I'm going to work to do one thing, and nothing works out that way. And all the things I was going to get done that
only
day.
30?
About 30. So I am busy. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs use that as an excuse of what they can't get done because we're all busy. I mean, we all have demands on our time. But I am really dedicated to how I manage my time, which then keeps me not feeling busy. And when I say not feeling busy, makes me feel not out of control on my day. I personally find if I'm feeling out of control and my day is kind of controlling me, that I'm not the happiest version of me. But when I can kind of control to the best I can by being proactive, by being on top of my schedule as opposed to reactive, I tend to be quote unquote less busy even in a busy day, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I want to dig more into that in a minute, but for now, I want to know our first official question. Amy, are you an impatient entrepreneur?
Yes, I am super impatient about everything, not just an entrepreneur. Super impatient. I know on days that I feel like I need to have patience is the time that I'm really behind everybody that is going as slow as possible. And because I'm an impatient entrepreneur, I'm just an impatient woman, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really how anybody who knows me would describe me. But because of that's who I feel like I am, that's why putting parts and pieces of my world into things that I can work through in a way, it helps keep me feeling impatient from feeling impatient all the time. Because I just don't love that feeling, even though it's kind of, I like everything to be going on my schedule. I like it when I want it. And I have had to learn over the years that's not always the case. But yes, super impatient. My family would tell you, if you want to know the truth, ask your loved ones. They will tell you if you're patient or impatient. And I was missing on the class. They handed out patience.
This is the entrepreneurship class. It's like my
husband's an entrepreneur and he's super patient. So I don't know. I know really patient entrepreneurs. Just not me.
Well, maybe my guests are a self-selecting group. Is there anything in particular that you're impatient about right now? Anything coming down the pipe for one of your businesses or anything like that?
So we have been, it's a blessing. So I have worked really for the last 6 months in my businesses to make a pivot in my companies. We do a lot of wholesale in my business, and I've done a pivot to do a lot more corporate gifting, and it took months and months of appointments to get those to come through. And I'm used to, in my wholesale world, going to having a conversation with a shop and then placing the order and getting into production. And the corporate business really was a lesson in patience. I wanted to go, close it, move on. And that did not happen. And so I was really frustrated, especially during the summer, because I was having meeting after meeting after meeting. I thought the meetings were going great. I thought they would get an order in, and that's not how that worked. And I was very frustrated with the process because I'm like, I really see this as being a really great pivot in 2025 for my company. And I think this is where I want to go. And then it was like meet, and then wait. But what I have found, again, in patience, I want to, when I make it, is in the last few months, those meetings that I had in June are coming through with their orders. So I have set these seeds of what I can do. And then now I'm starting to get the calls and the orders are starting to come in. What that sets me up for, though, is a lot of them are holiday corporate gifts, and it's mid-November, and I'm closing holiday gifting for early December, and that's going to cause a little bit of the tail's going to wag the dog a bit for the next few weeks. But I'm not going to complain because it's what I wanted. It's what I worked towards. But I really had to take an evaluation. And my husband's so good at this for me because he's so ultra patient he goes, Amy, it's just not going to come the way you want it to come. This is a new space for you. You have to learn how that space works. So now when I have a meeting, which I had the other day, they're planning a conference for May. And so I'm already working in November to put something together for a decision for a conference that's going to happen in May. So I just had to learn a little bit. And even though I've been an entrepreneur for years and years and years, as your listeners will know, if they've started to kind of create a new business or a new direction for their business, it doesn't always lay out the way the previous product or the previous direction they went. And so for me, I have to go back to that whole process of being very frustrated because it's not working as I want it to work in my head. But my husband constantly tells me that just trust the process, Amy. He goes, the response was good. You know, it was good. And now that I have a little bit more under my belt, I'm getting less anxious when I have the meeting because I know it's going to be a process. But when it first started happening, I'm like getting all these meetings. This is great. And then it's like crickets. And so it's really kind of frustrating for me. But yeah, so the next few months will be, the next 30 days, because really kind of once the second week of December hits, my business really is pretty slow until February. And it's that time of the year that I take to look at what I'm going to do in 2025. And I spend really a month working, if I'm launching something new or creating something new, which I am, that I'm not quite ready to talk about. But that from December 15th to like January 15th is really where I sit down, because it's not crazy at my work, and plan through the process that I do for everything I do, to have clarity of where I want to go in 2025. Because I'm super intentional about my, I may be impatient and I may have a couple of businesses, but I run my businesses with real intentionality, because I have found that intention behind what I do ends up producing fruit. And at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, that's what I'm trying to do.
And so, as you have your businesses, are you using a specific operating system for each of your companies, like Traction or something like that, or your one of your own design, where things are running on a certain, everything has a specific cadence and for meetings and deliverables and all that?
I wish I was that organized.
You sound organized.
I run out of notebooks.
Okay.
In my calendar and my phone. I really do wish. I am not that organized of a person. That's really not my personality. I mean, I know that some people really are. And so I have to put into place things that work for me. And I have learned along the way that the way that I'm wired up is perfectly perfect for the way that I'm wired up. And I like women to know that, is that we don't all have to be wired up exactly the same way to find success. Embrace who you are and how you operate. For a while, it was cocktail napkins would have all my operations on. I mean, I am not kidding. I've written 3 business plans on cocktail napkins. So for me, I don't really, but what I do is I have created a process that I can just now by rote memory go through. And so I go through the same process for everything. And it's not anything that's really written down anymore. However, it's the process that is in my new business plan masterclass that I've spent hours recording and creating for other people to learn, because it's what I do over and over again. So I am not somebody who is like personally, I'm not great at entering a bunch of data into a system. I mean, I do some consulting and they require me to fill out a log for a company I work for. And it's painful for me to have to go in and fill out the log because I'm always forgetting. I'm doing the consulting, but I have to go fill out the log to get paid. So anything that requires anything like that, I kind of usually stick way far away from. But you have to be who you are. I mean, I think you can be any way you need to be successful, as long as what you're doing is producing fruit and you're seeing forward momentum in what you're doing. You don't have to be a super organized person. If you looked at my desk, you would say, heavens, how does she find anything? But yet I know where everything is. And I have friends and I can go to their desks and they've got a folder with a label maker on, that they've on everything. And so again, if it works for you, it works for you. And how my system does actually work for me, and the fact that my businesses are successful show it. But I like all women to know that you don't have to be different than who you are. Embrace who you are, and then work within that set of skills. Instead of trying to work to change yourself, work within, embrace who you are as a woman and as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that advice, because I think, we sort of should on ourselves. Well, I should be more organized, or I should have certain processes, or, such and such guru recommends this, whatever it is. And so you get a lot of imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, I'm not doing it right, even though, I've got cash in the bank and I'm paying all my bills and I'm paying myself or whatever. And so, we don't feel like we're real business owners if we're not doing it some way, which is usually often a way, some man is doing it somewhere. And so having the permission to do what works for you, I think, is really liberating. I got advice years ago, which was staff your weaknesses. Don't surround yourself with people who are identical to you.
Absolutely. That's the first people I hire, are the people that are actually more patient and more organized.
Yeah.
And more love somebody who loves a repetitive task.
Yes.
Is exactly who I hire first, because I hate a repetitive task. So no, I have to do what makes me successful. And then again, embracing what makes you successful. I mean, I don't want to spend 20 minutes redefining who I am, because that's time that I'm not moving forward momentum in my business. I'm perfectly okay. I'm fully baked at this point in time at 50 years old. The cake's done. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of changing who I am and how I do things.
Yes, if my team's heard me say it once, they've heard me say it 100 times. I am not a repetitive task girly. If I like to come up with the idea. If I've done it a second time, we have a problem.
Yep, absolutely.
If I spend more than 10 minutes doing the same thing in a spreadsheet, I will just start to open windows so I can climb out of them.
But there are people that love a repetitive task. They know what they're going to do every day, and they find such comfort in that.
Yeah,
I want to poke my eyeballs out with this. So I'm with you. You and I, we're going to conquer the world, but it won't be the same thing every day.
I know, but you realize as you start adding people to your team, you're like, oh, there's a lid for every pot. Everybody's different. Yeah, there are people. I've had assistants and other team members who are like, I really like to know what, if I can do the same thing every single week, or repeating projects, I'd really like to do them. Like, ugh, you've got it.
Can't stand it. Find somebody else. I'm absolutely with you. I'm on that one.
Which is so beautiful. Everyone's brains work differently.
Yep.
We need each other. It's really lovely, when you think about it. But we're the same. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that.
So you do have team members who
I do.
allow you to be who you're going to be and keep things, on the straight and narrow.
Absolutely. I have all kind of people who do all that, and they do it much better than I do. I learned a long time ago that I did not have to be the smartest person in the room to have a big, successful business. If I hired people that were better at things than me, my business got elevated all the way around. So, I mean, I'm a big fan and a proponent of, in the beginning, you have to do it all as an entrepreneur. There's just not a whole lot of funds to have a bunch of people doing things. But as my business is cash flow, I find people who do things way better than I do. And I let them do what they need, what they do. And I let them kind of find their own path in that journey, because it doesn't always have to be the way I want it done.
Absolutely. When I started our PR firm 7 years ago, I was super precious about everything. I had to create everything. I had to do everything. And I started bringing in contractors, and I finally let go of a client's piece of content. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done anytime. You do that. And it comes back so much better than I ever could have done it.
So
and
much
I'm like,
better. Let it go.
Oh my God.
You'd be amazed when you let things go, how, it's maybe not the way you thought it was going to turn out, but when you let somebody shine in their light, it turns out much better a lot of times than my light. So I'm a big fan of that.
Now I'm like, what else can I get rid of? This is so like, wow. Light bulbs are going up everywhere. Just like, I'm just shedding projects as quickly as I can. Like, oh my gosh, I need to get in my lane and stay there.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. So, I find that entrepreneurs, you mentioned you read a lot, and I also do. I probably read about 3 books a week myself. Do you, in addition to reading, do you love podcasts? Do you go to conferences? Like how do you fuel yourself? And has there been anything that's been super formative, whether it was a book or a person or something like that?
So, I do like podcasts, but my podcasts they're true crime podcasts. They're not
Relaxation.
Because most of what I do outside of work is for relaxation because I'm on 8 to 10 hours every day.
Yeah.
And so I have to find a way to reset. So, I do some conferences. I do, but really what I do is I mainly look at self-care. I spend one day a week where I try to stay in my pajamas all day, where I don't do anything. By taking care of myself and renewing myself each week allows me to be able to hit Monday hard and get done what I need to get done. So, I'm not really probably the biggest self improvement reader. I really read for relaxation and pleasure too.
Me too.
I have really, if I do anything, I like to try to figure out how to be more self-aware of what I do better. But more than that, I try to be more self-aware of what I don't do well. Because I find the more identifying I can do with that, the better I can put parts and pieces into place that will be better for my businesses. So, for me, I take very seriously my downtime. It allows me to be a wife. It allows me to be a mother. It allows me to be the other things that are part of who I am and not get so unbalanced with just being in business. Because it's really easy, especially if you're a new entrepreneur, that whole myth of work-life balance. I don't know. I think that's a hard thing. That would be a whole subject on its own. But I do find if I take care of myself, eat well, I need to do more exercising, but eat well, do things like that, then I can actually have the mental capacity and the clarity I need to solve the problems that are going to inevitably come my way each and every week while I own a business. And like I said, I own several, so there's always something that I really hadn't planned on happening. So that's really what I mainly do. I eat a lot. I love to eat. I cook, and I enjoy eating out. So my husband and I do a lot of that. We travel, and then I do art. One of my companies is a design company, so it requires some art part to keep that going. But I learn different things every year. A couple of years ago, I learned guitar. A couple of years before that, I learned ballroom dancing. I think this next year, I'm going to join an improv class and learn improv. Because I think doing new things each year, as I get older, keep the brain moving in a good place. And then again, I really never know what I'm going to be able to pull out of all those experiences and plug into my business, to be true.
Absolutely. No, 100%. I feel very similarly. I mean, I realized pretty quickly how important rest is to being able to do this, like you just can't, I mean, everyone knows the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, but, the expectation that, I'm just going to work harder. Like I'm going to break through. It's like, okay, there's a law of diminishing returns here. Like it's getting worse. You need to go to sleep.
I say, if mama goes down, it all goes down. So,
yes.
I mean, my family needs me to be healthy. My employees need me to be healthy, and I need to be healthy because again, I'm, as the older that I get, I don't have the kind of energy that I had when I was younger. I mean, I find things that 10 years ago were very easy for me to do exhaust me now. So, I mean, I'm just not as young as I used to be. And so it's just important that I take care of myself. And I think all entrepreneurs, no matter where you are in the phase, if you want to be a high impact entrepreneur, even at the beginning phases, not forgetting yourself in the journey is, I think, really important.
I love that. And I think you mentioned learning something new every year. I totally subscribe to that too. I think, we don't have that learning environment or being a beginner as often, especially once we get better and better and more excellent in our area of expertise. It's like manufacturing a beginner's environment, you learn so much more, and you're right, it is great for your brain, but just to I think you get a lot of empathy from trying something new and being terrible at it.
There's something to be said about being really bad at something. I mean, when I learned to play guitar, it was horrible. I can now play songs and things like that, but when I first learned it was terrible. And my husband is always scared every year of what my new and my friends, they do laugh at me. I mean, my girlfriends, they will laugh at me every year, like, what are you trying this year? And I'm like, watch out. And then I do something new. but I think it keeps me interesting as a person. I think it keeps me interesting to myself. And I just find that I feel like it keeps me active, and I think it keeps me young. And those are things that, I want to continue to embrace.
Love that. I'm taking some notes. So, switching gears a little bit, tell us about a time in your business life where in one of your companies you felt like the rug just got pulled right out from underneath you and you thought, okay, I don't know how we're going to survive this, but ultimately it turned out to be one of the best things that could have happened.
Oh, I have a story. I don't know if I could tell you some of the best things that ever happened, but it is what happened.
Yeah.
So when I was 25, my boyfriend, who ended up being my husband, but he was my boyfriend at the time, we launched a business, and we launched ended up becoming an online business and grew that business to about a $14 million a year company. I mean, I was a multimillionaire by the time I turned 30, and it was really great. And then the recession of 2008 happened, and we held on for a couple of years, trying. We were in the furniture space, which was hit pretty hard by the recession with housing. We held on for a couple of years, but in 2011, I had lost 45, 50 pounds. And I was battling it every day, trying to save it. And it came a point that I remember going on our anniversary trip that summer and telling my husband that I just didn't think I'd put everything I had into it. I just didn't think it was going to be enough. And I said, I'm just so scared. I said, this is what we've done. We've had it for 13 or 14 years at the time. And I don't know what we're going to do. And I said, and all of our eggs were in that basket. That was our entire income for our family. We worked in it together, and I didn't know. And I was really super scared about that was not going to be fixed. And I was heartbroken because it was not only not going to be fixed, it was going to be not fixed in spite of everything I personally threw at it, all of my knowledge. And I kept thinking through the 2 years that I was going to get on the other side of it. And the recession just didn't end, and I couldn't get on the other side of it. And I was broken. I was as broken as you could be broken, because we ended up closing the business that August, and I didn't know what we were going to do. And in that process, I got the opportunity to serve. I was given the opportunity to serve as a chaplain at a hospital. I have a degree in religion, which is very odd for business, but it's something that I have a degree in. And I got the opportunity to serve people that were going through really bad times. They don't call chaplains in hospitals when things are great. They call chaplains in when things are bad. And I got to see perspective in that time, that even though I felt shattered, I mean, I felt as shattered as you could shatter somebody. I was lost. I didn't really know what I was doing. I got an opportunity to step in and serve things that were very shattering. I mean, I sat there while people were taking off life support. I sat there while mothers were told that their children did not survive. Really end of deal trauma. And it made me, or it helped me see that while my business had come to an end, which was personal and hurtful to me, that it wasn't permanent, because who had created the business still existed. And I didn't know if that was it. Was I a one-trick pony? Was this just a fluke that had happened? I didn't know, and I doubted myself. But it was within that 6-month time of closing our business and volunteering in the hospital and those environment that I had the idea after actually a Christmas party to do French macarons. And 90 days later, I opened a bakery with basically $800.
Wow.
And inside of 2 years, we got that $800 to generate about $600,000 in revenue. And I saw in that moment that the parts and pieces that made my first company successful were still part of me. And so while I still don't like my ending of that story, it's still gone. What I learned most importantly was me. Is that my ability to open a business and scale a business and grow a business is part of my DNA. And so therefore I can replicate that over. And they don't all grow as fast as that one did. It was kind of a fluky business, but I make a full-time living out of what I do. I support my family out of what I do. And I learned about me in that time. And so while it was a shattering time for me, I mean, I cried. I remember I cried for about 3 weeks, and my husband was like, you know what, Amy, you can't do this you got to get up. You got to get back in it. And I'm like, I don't want to get back in it. I want to stay here and wallow.
Yeah.
Goes, but that's not who you are intrinsically. He goes, that's nothing about who you are. I'm like, well, this is a new me. And he goes, it's not. He goes, it's not a new you.
Yeah.
It's a sad you. It's a you that is really mourning because it was personal, because I had thrown everything I had in and I couldn't fix it. But what I learned most about that is I learned who I was as a woman. I learned who I was as an entrepreneur. And I learned that what made the first thing successful didn't die with that business. And so I've had great success in my professional career, and I've had loss in my professional career, and I've had rebirth, and I've had success again. And what I mainly take away from that is, as long as I am putting one foot in front of the other. And I remember saying during that process that if I could I would trust myself again if I got the stadium lighting with the road all lit up like 18 miles down so I could see any potential pothole or any obstacle, I would trust it. But what my husband said, he goes, you just have to trust the journey, Amy, and the journey starts one foot in front of the other. So as long as I'm making forward momentum as a business owner, or in any aspect that I feel stuck in, if I'm just putting one foot in front of the other, I'm not running the race always. Sometimes it's just one step that counts. It's moving me closer to my goal. And so at the end of the day, I want women and entrepreneurs to hear that, because you're going to have the best intentions, the best product, the best something, and something may not work out. But you're not going to let that failure define your success any more than I let my failure hold me back from the success that I was going to be, that I didn't know, but I had to trust in who I was intrinsically as an entrepreneur and as a woman. And I had a lot of people who supported me, that's like basically knew who I was. And they allowed me the time to cry. They allowed me the time to mope and lick my wounds. But at the end of the day, they said, this is just not who you are. Who you are is somebody who gets up and you fight. And so if you are in a spot in your own business journey or in any part of your life that you feel like you're ready to throw in the towel, maybe it's just one step you need to take. You don't have to scale the mountain. You just have to keep walking down the path.
That's so profound. Do you feel like some of your grief was, aside from the failure of the business or the death of the business, do you feel like your a sense of identity died as well? Like, was your sense of self really wrapped up in the success of that business?
I felt that it was, because the success of that business was great. And we made a lot of money, and we had a very great lifestyle. And so lifestyle had to change. Things had to change. And at that point, I did feel like a lot of my identity was wrapped up in that success. But what I learned on the other side of that is my identity is not wrapped up in anything but me.
Yeah.
I am Amy Shippy, and that's okay. And it's great, and it's not so great, and it's pretty, and it's not so pretty, but it's authentic. And so what that means is that any business succeed or fail, I intrinsically am true to who I am. And therefore I hold my head high, even in the failures, because I think when people hear about people's success, they become envious and they don't always see the journey through to it. But I learned by being humbled and not winning. And I like winning, and I win most of the time. I like winning. That I don't wrap my identity up in the win, because the win can be knocked out of your sails very quickly. And I don't ever want to question who I am. And at that moment of loss, that's what I did. I questioned who I was. I was calling out that I was scattered as far as the East is from the West. That's how I felt. And I'm like, and I do not know how to put myself back together. I just didn't know. I didn't have the first clue. I was broken and I didn't know what to do. But for me, it was during that time in the hospital where I was standing with people saying goodbye. I mean, tragic goodbyes, not good. I don't think any goodbye is great, but goodbye to your 98-year-old grandmother is very different than goodbye to your 8-year-old child. So very different deals. And it was in those goodbyes and in those permanent losses that I saw that I was able to put one piece of me back. And so I'll be forever thankful for every person that I was able to stand in a gap, offered nothing profound. There is no profound words to be said in those moments. So there was nothing about anything I did or said, but each one of those people and their tragedy, whether they know it or not, healed my heart in that and helped put me back together. So I will forever be thankful for that 9-month opportunity to serve. Because that's what I find when I don't understand my answer or I don't know what I'm doing or where I'm going. Serving others is where I immediately go because I always weirdly get more out of serving than I think that I give.
Right. Yeah, that's the magic of service. We think it's for somebody else, but really it's like we're the ones that benefit. Such a beautiful story. Thank you, Amy. So tell us, going back in time a little bit, tell us about you as a little girl. Well, first of all, I want to know, did you have a business as a child?
I sold lemonade on the golf course in Hilton Head where I grew up. So I did.
Nice. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
No, so I did. I think I was 10 years old, 12 years old, something like that. So I had a little bit of a business. My mother's an entrepreneur. My father's an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur on both sides. So I
got it honest.
Long list of entrepreneurs.
And then was there a part of you that you perceived as a weakness, whether someone was just like, Amy, you're just too emotional or too competitive or whatever it was, or you perceived it indirectly, maybe people treated you a little bit differently for it. But so you felt like that personality trait was a weakness. And then as you grow up and become a leader and a business owner, you realize it's actually your superpower.
Well, I wasn't a great student in school. And so every report card that I think I ever received said, Amy does not live up to her potential. And I think it's on every report card that I ever got. And I don't know what I even understood that to mean, but what I took away from that was that I was inevitably not good enough. For every year in academia that I somehow was short of the mark. And I don't know if my teachers, again, I was in school in the 70s and 80s. So, I mean, they teach differently, I guess. Now. I don't know if the teachers understood what damage those words were. And because of that, I didn't know what the potential was, but whatever it was, I did not meet it. And that was really, and so because of that, I don't think I wasn't a great student because I don't learn in a traditional way. I'm a very auditory learner. I mean, the ways that I learned that I've been able to utilize in my adult life were just not the way that they needed to learn in the 70s and 80s in school. And I remember having the vocabulary book every week and you had to, write the vocabulary words 20 times each.
Yeah.
But that's repetitive. I mean,
I don't want to.
So that never got turned in. I mean, I had to write I couldn't just look up the definition. I had to write the and those tasks were super repetitive and they didn't fit in with how I did things. So the learning for me stopped. And so I identified a lot that I wasn't intelligent, even though my mom had my IQ tested and that was like really high. There was a mismatch in my educational journey from who I am wired up, which is why I'm so passionate about people being who they are and being true to who they are, because I don't want anybody to feel less than, because I didn't know what potential meant. I didn't know what my potential was. So as an adult, I do. And I grasped to that and I own that and I've exceeded that finally. But it took me into my mid-20s to feel confident in that space. So I've always been I'm a big talker. I love talking to people. I mean, that was probably something that I did in school. But what sits back at me mostly that I think that damaged my academic piece was that word. And I could go back and my mother probably kept all the report cards and they were, Amy does not live up to her potential. And, I want to tell people that you get to define what your potential is, not somebody else, because I way exceed my potential now.
Right.
On every metric.
Yeah.
But do not judge yourself or work to somebody else's assessment of who you are. Understand who you are and embrace it. Like I said, today I would be able to say, you know what? Is there another way to do that homework assignment that is not me sitting here writing this over, because it doesn't work for my learning style.
Right.
And so the same thing with math. I could get the assignment when three math problems, but I had to do 100. And so I was terrible at turning homework in because it was just so laborious and monotonous to my brain. So like I said, I think that would be it. But I was a very outgoing, extroverted kid. I'm an outgoing, extroverted adult. But that's probably the one thing I take away and I talk to people about is this whole idea of potential. And again, I'm just not going to be limited by what I'm not great at. I mean, I'm not great at a bunch of things, but I'm really great at a bunch of things. And so I'm not going to let my limitations limit my success. I'm going to figure out a way to work around those so that I can create a narrative that works within my best skills and my best attributes to get the success that I want.
Beautiful. Love that. Take heart.
That was a long way around that.
No,
question,
I love it. It's great though. You know, it's I think a lot of I have plenty of friends and they're usually women who are they just treat themselves like a never ending improvement project. I'm like, you're perfect the way you are. Figure out how to elevate what's great about you rather than, take an 8 to a 10 rather than a 1 to a 3.
And if you have a skill that is just not going to be something that you're going to elevate yourself to, then I would figure out as a business owner a way to delegate that to somebody else where that is their power. Because again, I don't do everything. My baker bakes 10 times faster than I bake. And I'm a good baker when I had to go make cookies, but she bakes way more than I bake. So, I mean, I let her do it every day. I don't really bake cookies anymore. Yeah. But we still move cookies out each and every week. And she has a huge ownership mentality where it comes to my business, and I don't have to micromanage her. She understands the scope of our work every week, and she will work to whenever that gets complete. And so she hates somebody to micromanage her. I'm like, well, great. I'd hate to micromanage people. I'm just going to tell you the scope, and we just need to make sure that it gets done. Yep. And she does that, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. She's going to do what needs to be done. Fabulous.
Okay, so you've given a lot of wonderful advice today. No. That was all compliment. So I was like, I hate to pin you down here, but if there is something you want to either harken back to from our show so far, or if there's a final piece of advice you want to give our listeners to make their lives and businesses stronger and better.
The number one thing is I would say know yourself. And more than know your strengths, I would say know your weaknesses. And if you don't know how to find that out, ask your loved ones. They will tell you what your weaknesses are. My children are quick to tell me. Yes. and if your weaknesses are that some weaknesses are not as great as others. But, for instance, I'll give you an example. I'm not a patient person. I mean, as we've already decided. But years ago, I had a weird chemical thing with being late for things. If I was running late, I was screaming at everybody. I'm screaming in the car. I was the worst version of myself if I was running late. And I made a decision about 10 plus years ago, maybe it was a little bit more than that. I said, you know what? I can control my time. I can't control a lot of things, but I can control how I organize my time. And I am 15 minutes early to everything. And my children laugh. They're like, Mom says she's going to be there at 1. She's going to be there at 12:45. And even though they don't have to be ready at 12:45, I'll sit in my car. I'll catch up on emails. I'll catch up on work but it's that 15 minutes of calm that I'm not screaming at everybody. So I was able to make a change that took me from my worst self to my best self by taking responsibility for my part in that problem. And so now my friends, if I'm actually on time for something, they're calling thinking that something's happened to me. Because it's
You're the first one here. Where are you?
It's such a notorious thing that everybody really in my group understands that if we're going for a girls' night, I'm at the bar 15 minutes before everybody else gets there just because I'm early. So if I'm running on time now, I get phone calls that they think something's wrong. but it wasn't a good version of me. I couldn't walk into a meeting calm because my blood pressure was elevated. I'm screaming at the people I love the most. I mean, it's bad. Yeah. And because of that, I was really laying groundwork that was not going to bear fruit. So if you are doing something that is not bearing fruit, have the honesty to look at yourself and quit blaming everybody else for what's going on. Take responsibility for your part in it. If you continue to find yourself screaming at your children because you're running 15 minutes late, which is my life, over and over and over again, what could I do differently? And for me, it was just to reorganize my time. And so I start my day early. I start my day with intentionality. I have my coffee. I have my routine, and I'm never rushing. Rarely am I rushing, because for me, rushing was, created just meanness from me. And that was just not my best self with my family and my loved ones. And nobody liked that part of me. No. So be honest with who you are in the mirror. And again, I could list you my great things that I do, and I have a list that I do really well, but I focus on the things that I don't do as well, because those are my opportunities to make adjustments in my life. The things I do well, I just do well. So I don't really have to sit down and critique those, because I do those well. But the things that I'm not doing well, I need to look at if I want to find myself having more success in those spaces. So time management was something that I struggled with, and I made an adjustment, and now it's just second nature to me. It is what it is. And I don't have to worry about it. And I don't scream at people now, and which is they tend to like.
Our minister calls it parenting at a loud volume.
My children tend to like me not screaming at them. My husband tends to like me not screaming at them. But when I was running late for something, I would walk into a meeting and I was just huffing and puffing, and I'm red. I mean, there's nothing that's going to be productive about that.
No. Well,
that's an adjustment.
That's some good advice there. I will take that to heart, because it's like, it's like, this is not how anybody wants to start their day or end it or anything like that.
So your listener may have another thing that's not being like, you may have another thing that sets you off. Look at what that is and see how to make adjustments in your life, because to be a successful entrepreneur, but I think to be successful in anything, you have to have an ability to recognize what your weaknesses are, because you'll succeed by your strengths to a degree, but you'll fall to your weaknesses way faster than you'll succeed to your strengths.
Well, we'll end there. Tell us where to find you.
So I've actually got a new website coming up, LadyBizWiz.com. It's been available, but I'm actually relaunching it with the new Masterclass. Okay. So if you have a business that you have a great idea, but you just don't know the questions to ask to get that business plan put together, my Masterclass is for you. So hopefully mid-December, the new website will be up. My book is also will be available on there. It's about taking your idea from idea to marketplace, all geared towards women entrepreneurs, which is kind of my favorite thing. Yeah. You can always reach me at LadyBizWiz.com or Amy at LadyBizWiz.com if you want to send an email. But I love women entrepreneurs. I love helping women get out of their own negative thought process and on their way to seeing their dream a reality.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Amy. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and gifts with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I sure did enjoy our time. It flew by.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.